Listen Lanarkshire is a community radio station governed by the registered charity Getting Better Together Limited. Therefore, the radio station itself retains political neutrality, and any political views or comments aired as part of political discussion programming or otherwise are not the views of Listen Lanarkshire, nor of Getting Better Together Limited. The station has a set of key commitments found on the Ofcom website, and we adhere to all necessary Ofcom rules. For more information or inquiries, please contact us at radio@shotshealthyliving.com.
24. I'm just wondering if there's data sharing information problems with sharing the contents of an email addressed to all elected members. Thank you.
Hello and welcome back to What's the Point, the podcast turned radio show where we cut through the council waffle, decode the political chaos and ask the question nobody else dares to. I'm your host Greg Lennon, live for the beating heart of North Lanarkshire. Shots. We're only the only thing more unpredictable than the weather is the policy and strategy committee agenda. Now tonight we're talking three big ones. First, the school transport storm, who actually decides how far your kids have to walk before they get the bus. And a spoiler alert, it's murkier than in a Glenboy puddle. Then we're going on to the GMB union bombshell. They say they were excluded for key negotiations with North Lanarkshire Council. That's right, shut out, sidelined and silenced. Kind of like me at full council, Gerry.
Yes, very
And
like
finally, with the Reform UK's rise, we ask, are the Greens really the ones to take them on? Or are they just planting trees while Reform's planting leaflets through your granny's door? But I'm not alone tonight. I'm joined as ever by my old pal, the Bellshill bowler himself, Mr. Gerry Brennan. How are you, Gerry?
Very well, Greg, and as always, it's an extraordinary pleasure to be here.
For the good folks at home, Gerry is a man who confidently wears a cravat and a smoking jacket combo like he's hosting Mastermind in the Bellshill Miners. He's their political enigma, part Noam Chomsky, part pub quiz legend, and second place best bowler after Saturday's result. Gerry, have you recovered?
It was a chastening experience, Greg. After a thrilling 21-20 victory in the Championship semi-final at Orbison Bowling Club, I stepped out onto the purple pampas of the club on Saturday afternoon to be thumped by Big Craig Burton. He beat me 21-6.
I'm glad you're
so congratulations, Craig.
I'm glad you're more. And always, Gerry, we've got a brilliant guest tonight, and who's our old pal Claire Williams.
Yes,
Claire is with us, a woman so green she tried to run the deposit return scheme out her back garden. She told me every time she sees a plastic bottle she hears the sound of democracy and a 20p refund. Honestly, if we had a return scheme for council minutes, we could have funded a new town hub by now, Gerry. Claire, how are you?
I'm good. Missed your banter. Thanks for having me back.
you've surely been catching up with it online though, Claire.
I have. It's a guilty pleasure.
For those at home, Claire was actually our first guest when we moved over to radio, and look, she's back voluntarily, Gerry. That's either loyalty or Stockholm syndrome, but we'll be able to tell later.
The latter, probably.
So tonight we also want to hear your views on us. I should say as well, we've got a silent guest in the corner, Gerry, a lady who actually does need no introduction in the sunny area of Shots.
Mrs. Shots.
Mrs. Shots herself.
Wow.
Mrs. Louise Murphy. Thank
Hello.
you so much for joining us this evening, Louise.
Well, thank you for having me.
I'm sure you'll come right in this political debate that we are about to unpack. So we've got a caller section tonight as well. We want to hear from you, the people who keep us grounded and angry in equal measure. Are you affected by the school transport changes? Are you in a union and you feel left out of decision making? Or do you think the Greens can stop reform, or are they just preaching to the converted? We want to hear your views. So telephone lines will be open this evening from about, I'd say, 8 o'clock. And if you call 07379 399 228, I'll say that number again for the good folks at home, 07379 399 228, or drop us a wee note on Facebook. We'll play the best ones live on air, and you'll have an opportunity to have your digs at whatever you're looking to have a dig at. And don't forget, you can follow us across social media platforms on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and all the rest. Like, comment and follow, or just shout at your phone like the rest of us do. Either way, we'll kind of start it for here, Gerry, then, eh? So, I want to come on to the first item on our agenda this evening, which is school transport cuts.
School transport cuts.
Would you like me to start?
You start, and
I will start.
Fill in the gaps.
Okay, because I'm going to play you a wee bit of audio in a minute, Gerry, which I'm sure you'll love.
I'm looking forward to it with
pleasure.
bated breath.
Today's Education Committee, where at the Education Committee it was highlighted that there was a report to in relation to your working group, your school transport working group, and the safe walking routes. Now, within that report, it was highlighting that all walking routes are deemed safe across the authority. And one of the key points that I raised during the committee meeting was, given the fact that the Scottish Government are ultimately the ones who can interject at any point, with regards to raising
yes,
or reassessing the statutory distance, why is the SNP no jumping, I should say, for their chairs and shouting about this?
Probably because it's their responsibility. It's absolutely within the gift of the largest party, alongside those who would vote for them, to have a safe majority to change the statutory limits if they so wished. So just to remind people what those statutory limits are for secondary school students in North Lanarkshire Council area, the expectation is that you will walk a minimum of 3 miles to school and 3 miles back from school before you qualify for school transportation. And if you are of primary school age, that drops to 2 miles. So 2 miles each way. So you potentially have a round trip each day of 6 miles if you are a secondary student, and 4 miles if you are a primary school student. Now, that is the statutory limit, and that statutory limit is set by the Scottish Government, and the Scottish Government at the moment is run by, Greg?
I'm going to hazard a guess here, Gerry. I'm going to say the SNP.
It's the SNP. So at any point in the SNP's tenure since 2021, when they've been in power, just we'll use this parliamentary term, they could have changed that to, I mean, we speak about the Daily Mile quite a lot. The kids walk a daily mile to school. I don't think I would have any problem even with kids walking a mile to and from school. I think that's quite reasonable. And if we're looking at active transport, then, you know, a mile to school, 20-minute walk, I think that's perfectly reasonable in the inclement weather that we have here in North Lanarkshire. But I think the statutory limits are way beyond what's reasonable. And I think that the SNP could change that, and they haven't.
Well, there's a curious point, Claire. In North Lanarkshire, we have 4 SNP MSPs. Out of those 4, 2 hold ministerial positions. One holds a whip's position.
Yes.
And I can't remember.
Senior politicians.
I can't remember, but we have Jamie Hepburn, who's a government minister. We have Neil Gray, who's a government minister. We have Fulton McGregor, who is currently a whip in the Scottish Parliament for the SNP. And Claire Adamson, I don't know if she holds a role within the cabinet.
Not entirely sure.
No, she's Clydesdale.
Is she not housing?
But she's out with North Lanarkshire.
Yeah.
So within North Lanarkshire, we've got 4 prominent MSPs. If you look at those MSPs, I think all but one employ North Lanarkshire councillors as part of their office staff. Surely it's within their gift to raise these matters with their bosses and say, look, listen, think that there has to be something done in relation to this. There has to be an interjection coming for the Scottish Government.
Yeah, but that would mean that they couldn't play pretend war with the Labour administration.
So let's cast our mind back, Gerry. Let's go back a wee bit to when this issue was first highlighted in relation to the parents groups that started and formed in protest to the changes of school transport. At that time, I think Progressive Change were the ones that put forward a requisition order in relation to a vote of no confidence in the leader of the council, because again it was a completely unfair position to take that school transport was being reduced so badly. And then all of a sudden, with the SNP trying to steal the narrative, trying to meet with the parents, making promises that they were going to sort of instate the school transport, and then that get whittled down at the end to basically a working group being established. Now, you'll not be surprised today, Gerry, when that point was raised, the SNP group leader took the opportunity to try and have a wee dig. I think it was potentially aimed at us. Don't know if it was aimed at you as well, Claire, but it was aimed at those who did not attend the working group. Would you be as good to let the good folk at home know exactly what that entailed, that working group?
So the working group sat down with officers and other elected members to determine what the criteria for the new walking routes were going to be. There's an outside consultant who are involved in it as well, but basically...
no, but we looked at the policy, Gerry.
We looked at the policy.
We looked at the policy. Yeah. That external consultant, we've had no impact on what they've reported on. None. We looked at a policy that wasn't fit for purpose, but at the point the budget decision was made.
Yeah, but we did speak about, in general terms, we spoke about paths, we spoke about roads, we spoke about crossings, we spoke about water courses, lighting and all of that. So all of that came into it. Now, the issue for me is that should have been done anyway. I mean, the very least that the children of North Lanarkshire, the students of North Lanarkshire Council should expect is safe walking routes to already have been assessed. Now, once the Labour administration have made the decision that they're going to withdraw the school transportation as it was, they're going to enforce the statutory limits, the very least that kids could expect is a safe walking route. And for people for the SNP group in North Lanarkshire Council in particular, to walk away thinking that is some kind of moral victory is pretty pathetic, to be perfectly honest.
Now, am I right in thinking, the both of you, because the two of you are on this, was it a case that there was no officer attendance for the first number of meetings?
So we always had officers from roads, from transport.
Roads, yeah.
I think the first meeting we had education, and then there was a big gap with no education folk attending that could really talk to us about children's rights and that kind of thing, the impact on parents. And then we went into reassessing based on our policy, and you and I both attended till that point. Yeah. And then I'd missed the last couple. Hands up, I've put in my apologies because
so
it didn't.
You, Claire.
We'd come to a point where we'd kind of, like we do quite often in member officer working groups, we'd done the hard work. Yeah. We'd had those conversations with officers.
It's like a mortgage. It's all it's front end loaded. So
it's very front end.
So all the work was done in the first few meetings, and then I had the temerity to miss one in August when I was on holiday.
Well, how dare you? How dare you?
So perhaps that was what excited the leader of the SNP.
This gives a bit of insight into what happened at today's committee.
I'm looking forward.
Any questions for anyone? Councillor Lennon online, please.
Chair, thanks very much. The Scottish Government, under the Education Scotland Act 1980, sets the national framework for school transport and pupil safety. Guidance makes clear that councils must ensure children's journeys are safe and suitable. North Lanarkshire's own new standards admit that some routes currently classed as acceptable will not meet the safety threshold until August 2026. If that's the case, then the responsibility sits with the Scottish Government to step in, either by tightening statutory guidance or requiring immediate corrective action. Can I ask, Chair, perhaps even to the SNP group directly, has your government been notified of these risks, and if so, what action will you demand they take to protect children over the next year? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Andrew, can you comment on that at all? Thank you.
We're not saying that any of the routes that will be enhanced are not safe. This is an acceptable walking route, which is completely different from safe. All our walking routes are safe. Just whether we deem them acceptable or not is defined by our own criteria, and I would like to say that we've probably got one of the most comprehensive walk routes assessments now available within Scotland.
Do you wish to supplement, Councillor Lennon?
Yeah, please, Chair. I would respectfully disagree with that, Andrew. There is numerous reports coming in across the authority walking routes being unsafe. I can look at my own ward area as well and highlight two. I think that the position here is, and I think that people at home need to know, that the Scottish Government could interject tomorrow and fix this situation, but yet they do not. And again, if appropriate funding was provided to this council, then school transport would be available to all young people and we wouldn't be having this debate. But thank you very much, Chair.
Councillor Carricker.
Thanks, Chair. Welcome this report. I think it was a long time coming. We obviously did request this before any changes were made with the budget decision made by every group.
I'm not a puppet, I'm a real boy.
In this chamber, other than the SNP group, to change the mileage criteria, notably the ones that I just spoke there as well. This should have been done before any changes were made. The working group worked very well. Disappointing, again, some members from other groups didn't attend all of the meetings, but the group worked very well, and we believe that we have captured all the complaints that we received about routes, and we've worked very hard to pull this together. There is a concern that this doesn't come, even though we're approving it today, it won't be until next year.
I'm not a puppet, I'm a real boy.
So, Gerry, there you have it. So basically what we had there, it's a wee bit of rewriting the history, I think, in that as well, with the fact that the SNP leader saying that every other political grouping in North Lanarkshire voted for the cuts. I don't really know when that happened.
What that was tacit acknowledgement that a big ball was dropped, and that the sickly sweet saccharine taste of this acceptable walking route is that's enough for the SNP group to suggest that we did our job. But I'm afraid you're just going to have to accept that while the SNP government could change the statutory limits to 1 mile, we're not going to do that, and we're going to blame everybody else for not doing it. You're right, they could change it tomorrow, they could provide the funding to Scottish local authorities, and off we would go. And the other thing about that is these acceptable, I'm still going to call them safe walking routes, but these walking routes in some cases are going to stretch for 3 miles. If it was reduced to 1 mile, the cost of that, the scale of that assessment would reduce by 2/3 as well.
So is that a fair assumption, Claire? Because we've had conversations about this, so you're kind of in favour of the policy, however you've got a grave concern where it goes.
I think the working group was worthwhile because the policy we had was not fit for purpose.
Yeah.
Right. So it was worth doing that.
It was old as well.
Yeah, it was worth doing that piece of work to make sure, because at the point we started the working group, primary school transport cuts were still on the table, and that was terrifying.
Yeah.
That was terrifying that you could be having these assessors saying that it was safe for primary school kids to walk unlit routes next to water and all that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, you're quite right. We should have done all that work beforehand.
Yeah.
Before that decision was even tabled by officers, that work should have been done.
Yeah.
We should have been looking at where there was public transport alternatives. We should have been looking at spend to save, so we got safe routes to school, because I don't think there's anything wrong with a kid who's 13 cycling 3 miles to school if they're capable.
Yeah.
You know, it
If
takes.
they wish. Yeah.
We've got plenty of initiatives to give them a bike, to give them the skills to do it. We've just got terrible infrastructure around our schools. So that's another, it just doesn't seem very well thought through, and it was a sudden budget cut. And we've got to remember that budget cut came on the back of the massive increase in the cost of the transport, which nobody seems to want to talk about. I mean, how does the cost double?
It's a good question.
Why wouldn't we look at bringing those contracts in-house?
Oh, there's a contentious
But
subject
then,
matter.
if we do that as a council, we stop being enablers and we become providers, and we don't like that in North Lanarkshire, because North Lanarkshire Council like to enable other people to do the stuff
outsource
that North Lanarkshire could do on their own.
Is that because they've got a problem with accountability?
Oh my goodness.
I never thought about, not a statement.
It's absolutely a statement. It's a statement of fact. Accountability flies out the window in that respect, and there's so many examples of it, and we'll touch on some of them as we go on tonight. But yes, it is an example of we don't want to be accountable for anything.
I mean, one thing I do have to say, I still have unanswered questions about some of the routes, which you'll be getting obviously emails from. You know, we stood with council officers and the route distances of when a vehicle comes into sight, and they were clearly wrong.
Yeah.
Nobody's answering me. So if I can't get answers, how do parents challenge them?
No.
So what's the solution to it? What do you think is the walking routes? Because as I said, the walking routes policy seems to be in place now, and it seems to be something that's cross-party support for. But is the assessment still going to be the same in relation to safe walking routes? Because again, is it the consultancy that was used in relation to it and to do these assessments?
I mean, the thing that there was lots of worrying aspects about the original assessments that would have escaped through, and these are assessments taking place at between 7:45 in the morning and 9:15 when school was finished, sort of thing. So they were carrying out these assessments. Some schools are in at 10 minutes to 9. So 25 minutes, half an hour after kids are in school, some of these assessments have been carried out to determine whether or not it's safe for individuals going to that school to be, safe or not. So some of the hazards that exist at 20 to 9 at that school, given the volume of traffic going back and forth, won't be there at 9:15, and yet that was deemed to be sufficient as part of the previous remit. So a bit of a shambles previously.
So do you both agree with officers that all routes are safe?
No.
Do you? No.
I believe on the evidence presented to officers, they're being told they're safe.
Yeah.
But I don't think the assessments are fit for purpose.
And are these assessments conducted by council officers, or is it externally sourced?
It's externally sourced.
Yeah, there we go again. Okay, I want to move on. I want to now go on to something rather juicy, Gerry.
Juicy.
Again, this education committee the day was lovely.
Question.
Yes.
How was it convened? How was it convened? Because some of the convener performances have been absolutely diabolical.
It was actually quite reasonable. So, and unbelievably, Gerry, for the first time, I think in a long time, my mic was working without hitch or issue. So there you go. They must have fixed my connection today. Although I did come up about 4 or 5 times. I was excluded for the meeting before it started.
I heard that.
Bizarre.
Did you manage to remain a part of the meeting for the entirety of it, or were you ejected?
I am sure there is a lot of labour sighs this evening to hear that I managed to stay in the entirety of the meeting. I was not ejected, and there was no standing order 50 used.
I want to congratulate you, Greg.
I feel as if I should get a gold badge tonight.
Absolutely. Well done.
But to come on to the point, today, Claire, we all received an email out of the blue for the GMB. Gerry, do you want to touch upon the point of what that email consisted of?
I can read it out, actually. Dear Councillor Brennan, I'm writing on behalf of GMB Scotland's members working as learning assistants in North Lanarkshire Council regarding their job evaluation.
Point order, Gerry, point order. Is there a data breach being committed here?
Well,
Point of order. I'm just wondering if there's data sharing information problems with sharing the contents of an email addressed to all elected members. Thank you.
Greg, let's just see if that's the case. Now, personal data is any information that relates to an identified or identifiable living person known as a data subject.
Right. So my interruption then is completely irrelevant. Is that
quite possible?
Okay, I'm happy to continue.
Right. So it's GMB Scotland's view that learning assistants are undervalued and underpaid for the role they do in providing vital frontline support in the education of local children in your ward. North Lanarkshire Council have conducted an evaluation of their members' roles as part of the redesign of the service. However, in our attempts to ensure our members' interests are represented and their value as frontline workers secured, North Lanarkshire Council have placed a number of barriers in our way and undermined their own process for job evaluation. Cara Stevenson, GMB Scotland's organiser for the Women's Campaign Unit, has been ignored by North Lanarkshire Council officers and blocked from advocating on our members' behalf. Regretfully, North Lanarkshire Council is therefore the first council which has refused to even engage with a trade union representative on the issue of job evaluation. North Lanarkshire Council also refused to share the score of our members' jobs roles, making it impossible to assess whether or not the scores are fair and accurate. 3 months had passed between asking for the scores and North Lanarkshire Council releasing them. Further, during the redesign, no GMB members who performed the role of a learning assistant were interviewed, a fundamental part of the process. We therefore are extremely concerned about the process's integrity. On behalf of our members, your constituents and frontline workers in your council, I write to ask you to write directly to the Chief Executive and Leader of North Lanarkshire Council to ask for the process of job evaluation to be restarted with full trade union and job holder involvement. Without your intervention, learning assistants will be paid less than their worth following a botched process of evaluation. GMB Scotland representatives would be glad to meet with you or your party group to discuss this matter further. And that's from Rory Steele, Policy and External Relations Officer, GMB Scotland.
Those are very brutal words, Gerry.
Words.
So upon reading this today, obviously there was a number of questions that jumped out to me. And under item 6, we had additional support needs and inclusion service redesign update. And again, this was a meaty agenda item. But on page 154, and you hone all the way down, there was a paragraph in there that highlighted that the review was conducted and trade unions were engaged, etc, etc, etc.
And contrary to...
And contrary, complete and utter.
Goodness me.
You would not believe the level of distance between those two threads. So rightly so, I asked the question, well, hold on a second, given the fact that the GMB has sent an email to all members at that point, an SNP councillor quickly, point of order, there's a data breach being committed here.
Point of order. I'm just wondering if there's data sharing information problems with sharing the contents of an email addressed to all elected members. Thank you.
A data breach, I don't understand how there's a data breach if it's emailed to all 77 elected members, but answers on a postcard if you're a data controller.
Did that member identify the data subject?
No, of course she didn't. She just randomly blotted out words. But basically,
Point of order. I'm just wondering if there's data sharing information problems with sharing the contents of an email addressed to all elected members. Thank you.
basically, when those words were blotted, I managed to continue on my train of thought. And I highlighted to the convener, well, I've got 5 questions and potentially an amendment coming at the back of this so that a recommendation can be added to that report. What then took place was a bit bizarre, Gerry, I'm not going to lie. It was absolutely surreal. So, committee chair didn't want me to continue in relation to the questions, so kind of took a pause so he could seek advice.
Right.
And at that point I kept asking, well, can I ask the questions? Because I've got a couple of questions and they're pertinent questions in relation to this and it's competent. And under page 154, there is a number of things in there that contradicts what's been stipulated in this email. Again, paused again, and then eventually I was allowed to come in. So the questions were in relation to what engagement was there with the GMB, what engagement was there with regards to the staff, and again in that email it highlights that the staff were no consulted at any stage of the process.
Furthermore, during the redesign, no GMB members who performed the role of learning assistants were interviewed.
Well, according to them, that's not the case. And in addition to that, was a couple other questions about the union's involvement, but specifically, what unions? Give me who, where, and why, and when. Who were the unions that were engaged with? That quickly led to an interjection coming for the officer who kind of went around the houses before giving me any sort of plausible answer, and allowed the leader of the council to come in and say, well, I'm dispelling the myth which took place in past to an officer. That officer again highlights, no, GMB have been engaged with. At that point, never specifically said GMB, but engaged with. The officer highlighted that they're quite content that the unions have been engaged with. Again, going completely polar opposite to what's stipulated in that email. And then again, I had to come back in again and ask, well, you've not mentioned GMB, you've not answered my question, so give me that specific. Is the GMB been engaged with in this process? And in addition to that as well, has the workforce? Don't think that's too complicated.
Straightforward. That
same point highlighted again. Well, if you're not accepting, at that point I was advised that the amendment will not be accepted. Same councillor again, point of order, tries to jump in. He'll need two proposals or two contributions coming in case you have to make it for the floor.
I think in order to do it from the floor, there has to be some form of debate, which I think would require two contributions, but I'm not certain. Thank you.
For the good folks at home, normally what would happen is you can raise an amendment to any official report and highlight here's an alternative view, and that would go to the Chamber and the Chamber will vote on it. Whereas what happened in December, the rules were changed to any amendment being 24 hours prior to allow the administration to get their ducks in a row and how they're going to stop your amendment going through.
And at that point, North Lanarkshire became North Korea. Yes, North Korea.
So we salute our El Presidente again,
yes,
for basically taking away all forms of democratic process in North Lanarkshire.
No debate here, Greg.
The concerning point is the 77 elected members were given that very same email by the GMB convener, let's call them,
Rory Steele.
And again, within that email, that's been highlighted to members, and I find it staggering that the fact that the Chamber was more inclined to try and shoot me down to make sure that there was no point being made in that process for the workforce.
Well, in fairness, Greg, the email that I received from Rory Steele was sent to the Progressive Change North Lanarkshire group, rather than all elected members, so it may well be that Rory has had previous experience of dealing with parties who actually take matters seriously.
Point of order. I'm just wondering if there's data sharing information problems with sharing the contents of an email addressed to all elected members. Thank you.
And decided that they were only going to contact a political group.
I don't think it was that, Gerry. I think all 77 got it, to be honest.
Well, I got it.
I think all 77.
I did.
Claire got it.
Claire, why do you think they would look to shut this down?
I can't understand. I mean, like, surely one of the joint responsibilities we have is transparency. Like, as councillors, as a council, as employers, you know, like, And I'm not on education, children and families, so I didn't even realise there was a committee today where this might come up. I read the email, half wrote an email to a couple of people going, what's this all about? You know, but didn't take it further than that because they only come in this morning. So, but yeah, they either did meet the GMB or they didn't. There's no middle ground here.
Immediate similarities though between this and the NLC 9, the early years workers. And again, a huge contradiction between the views of the council and officers and the views of the trade unions involved in representing those workers.
But again, also in addition to that as well, it was another opportunity for the SNP to gaslight people on the NLC 9 position, because if you recall, North Lanarkshire SNP group was adamant they did not choose anything to do with NLC 9 stuff, and at that time you had your MP Annam and you had others jumping on the bandwagon about the SNP support for NLC 9 workers, and the fact was, Gerry, they picked it as part of their budget, and they absolutely foolishly picked it as part of their budget. So those big trade unionists within the SNP were quite happy to cut and slash jobs and then try and rewrite history.
I think it was 38 jobs.
38 jobs at that time for NLC 9. So, coming back to this point, again, Claire, democratic process existing, don't get me wrong, the day was absolutely a breath of fresh air for me because I wasn't kicked out the chamber.
Can I ask you if there was any meaningful contributions from the largest opposition party?
No.
None?
No. So the contributions were more focused on the positivity of the report. So that's kind of where they led it all in relation to the review.
So
of the
happiness,
services.
joy.
Joy and happiness.
Wow.
But again, same point comes out that you've got a scathing, and I can't express this enough to
That's
the people
brutal.
at home, that if a senior trade union is writing to all elected members in a council highlighting complete lacks and failings in process, then somebody somewhere has to take note of that, and it would tend to be all 77 councillors. But unfortunately on this occasion we ended up in a wee bit of a twilight zone, and I don't know, it was rather bizarre that every councillor was not wanting these questions asked.
Yeah, I don't think it can ever be the case when workers' representatives come out from at the end of a process and call it botched. That's not acceptable.
Yeah.
I don't think if we're working in partnership rather than a top-down approach, we should never leave with the feeling that a process was botched, even if we don't agree with the outcome.
Yeah.
On you go.
Can I jump in for a second? Putting aside for a second that maybe the other councillors maybe haven't done their job as effectively as they could, you would maybe think that from like a personal perspective, they've got kids, grandkids, nieces and nephews that go to school throughout North Lanarkshire, and if there's something that's potentially going to affect the learning for their family members, that they would take an active interest in that. I mean, I don't know if that's just a really obvious point to me, but
It's what I'd written down, Louise. I'd written, learning assistants actually keep classrooms functioning at this point. We all know the difficulty teachers are under.
Oh,
They are the one thing that enables our young people to learn at school. And if we don't treat our staff well, they go elsewhere. We've learnt that.
Yeah.
So are we going to be in a situation where there's a recruitment problem in 6 months' time, and actually schools are having to put classes together or operate in an unsafe environment? So it's hugely concerning.
So again, Gerry, what do you think? What do you think the main reason would be to try and I think it's evidently clear what the main reason why the administration would be trying to shut this down. What would be the motivation coming for a trade union but to try and highlight the fact of these points if it's inaccurate? I couldn't see a trade union making such a statement knowing fine well it's jeopardising its relationship.
Absolutely.
Especially with the elected members.
Absolutely. I don't personally see any benefit in Rory Steele making these comments regarding the process. I mean, why would they?
That's a bit
and there's almost an emotional plea here to understand the point that you just made, and the unintended consequences that could come of that. But it's one particular group of workers, mostly female workers, who are going to be impacted here. So why? I can see no justification for the GMB or any other unions making a mountain out of a molehill.
Yeah, and it shouldn't matter which union you're in. You should, if you know what I mean. If you join a union based on which union you want to join, and you expect to have the same treatment.
I do wonder though how many people contacted Rory in response to his email. I did. I know I did that alongside one of my colleagues, but I acknowledged it before leaving to take part in other business in the afternoon. But my group are definitely going to sit down and speak to Rory and see if there's anything, even after the fact. I know the committee's taking place, whatever decisions. Greg, that report, was that for noting? Was that
it was
for voting?
There was recommendations on it that were for noting, Gerry, but what I'm going to do just now is I'm going to try and play another wee highlight reel. It's 11 minutes long, so I'm not going into that level of detail in it, but it was just rather bizarre. So here we go.
Questions related to page 154 in the learning assistance post and the statements made thereafter. Chair, I've got a number of questions, but potentially an amendment to the report, but if you can indulge me a wee bit. Today the GMB sent out an email to all members in relation to this paragraph, working in collaboration with both teaching and single status unions, a new learning assistant remit and job description.
Sorry. Point of order. I'm just wondering if there's data sharing information problems with sharing the contents of an email addressed to all elected members. Thank you.
Rather bizarre.
My goodness.
Councillor Lynn, can I just ask what your chair of the question is to this paper in item 6, please? Can you just enlighten me, please?
So the questions in relation to engagement was they're done with trade unions, specifically what trade unions were discussed. And in addition to that, to alleviate Councillor Larson's concerns, there's no data sharing taking place. It was only referenced that an email came from the GMB union to all elected members raising concern
Sorry,
about that.
Councillor, can I just stop you there 2 seconds, please? What item is it on item 6 you're specifically highlighting?
154, learning assistant post. There's reference to it in an appendix.
Just 2 seconds.
And as I said, there's a possible amendment to this as well, Chair. So can I ask the questions?
So you're suggesting there's an amendment coming in, because when did you actually send the amendment, Councillor Lennon?
Then before the committee started, Chair, to yourself and Mark Hamill. I'm happy to raise it for the floor.
It's rather strange, Gerry, isn't it? It's rather strange.
Confusion reigns.
I said a possible amendment dependent on the answers to the question.
Just give us 2 seconds, Councillor Lennon.
Yeah.
So, I don't see any unreasonable position here in why you wouldn't just allow that go straight to questions and ask the officers. I just find it rather bizarre. But anyway, for the good folks at home, just to round that up, we will be stopping for a wee quick break, couple of songs, and then we're back and we're going to be talking about Claire. We're going to be talking about and whether or not your party is the answer to challenging the reform rise in the UK, and whether or not the Greens have got the teeth to bite them.
Would they make rather strange bedfellows?
Well, do you know, so I said that to Claire on the way on. She was rather adamant.
They are the antithesis of Green ideology.
There you go.
That was a lot longer than what I said to him.
As I said again, look, listen, who knows what way elections work in this country sometimes, and again, strange bedfellows are often it, but I think it's probably safe to say, Claire, that I can't imagine that yous will be in a position to any form of collaborative working with Reform UK. But anyway, we're going to click to a couple of wee songs just now, and let's see when we get back. Welcome back to What's the Point? That final song there, Smooth Criminal. Gerry, I hear next week's going to be a very interesting week for a lot of people within the SNP group, and perhaps some smooth criminals in there. But anyway,
of Bonnie Dundee,
yeah,
no doubt be.
We'll no jump into that. I'm sure we'll have a special coming out in the next week or two. But anyway, on the back of that, where I was going to go is with you, Claire, and the Green Party. Where do you see the Green Party faring in this Scottish Parliament election?
Well, I'm not a politician, so you're asking me.
You are though.
I've been very clear. I hope we get Gillian back in. I think she's done an excellent job so far. I would hope that overall we see an increase. I hope we get somebody in the south. We've not had somebody before. You know, but we are still talking regional.
Yeah.
You know, that's where we sit.
Well, they're not political.
What about yourselves?
Political disclaimer: there is other political parties out there. Although we're talking about the Greens just now, there's obviously others. But in relation to you, Claire, I'll come on to answer that point about ourselves in a moment. But in relation to your good self, Claire, where are you standing in the regional list?
I am standing in a very supportive number 2 position to Gillian, and I am there entirely to be a part of getting her re-elected and being the force behind her campaign in North Lanarkshire. I would hope, and I hope that other people on the list. We've got a rejigged region, so we've now got East Lothian.
Yeah.
West Lothian.
West
I
Lothian.
can't do East West.
West.
West Lothian we have, and I hope that Cammy over there will be doing exactly the same thing, driving forward this campaign to get Gillian re-elected and not really thinking beyond that.
I've got a wee bit of a difficult question for you. Now, again, the sort of palpable attitude towards North Lanarkshire politics for the electorate. And obviously Gillian being a Lanarkshire lass, so to speak, and
She's from Falkirk.
well, she's still representing this kind of area. She's very prominent in this area. Again, do you think, or can the people expect that if there's a Green MSP elected to the regional list, that we'll see some sort of, I don't know, highlight within the Scottish Government or in the Scottish Parliament with regards to how North Lanarkshire's politics is conducted? Is there scope, is there room for that? Is there a case that we could potentially see a political grouping wanting to actually take on, let's no mince our words, some sort of questionable political shenanigans that take place in North Lanarkshire?
I think every single person who gets elected to the Scottish Parliament also has a responsibility to make sure that local authorities are abide by democracy.
Yeah.
You know, is there not a democracy minister? Or I don't know what the rules are, but you can't. Somebody has to make sure that local authorities are being run properly and democratically.
Well, again,
somebody's got to be responsible for
we
that.
need a cabinet secretary for delegated authority.
Yes.
That's what we need.
We need
I'll be honest.
We need some oversight.
That's what's destroying local democracy, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Destroying it.
The position again that councillors are kind of elected on the premise that I'll be a strong voice for your area, or I'll be doing this and I'll be doing that, and then all of a sudden they get into that chamber, they're whipped straight away, so they can't put it forward any reasonable representation.
I'll be a strong voice for doing what I'm told, and I'll be a really good boy, and I'll do what Tracy Carragher and Jim Logue tell me to do.
But that again comes back to the idea of delegated authority, even to a certain degree. Officers within the council as well, their powers go unchecked. When was the last time we had a review of delegated authority?
Well,
in the council?
I put forward a motion to council last time round and was told that it was not competent. And I've had this before. I was asking for a review of delegated powers, not a change to delegated powers, not putting the cart before the horse, but having the review, a joint party working group to look at areas that we may wish to consider changing, and then at a later point you bring those to the council for a decision to be made as to whether or not you want to change. And the provost, Councillor Kenny Duffy, came back to say that on in his opinion, even that review, because it could lead to a change, fell foul of the 6-month rule. Therefore, it fell down and we didn't discuss it.
So there's a couple of quick points that I want to touch upon, Claire. In relation to yours, Gerry, with regards to delegated authority, what kind of things is delegated authority? What kind of powers have been taken away for elected members?
So it's not that powers have been taken away necessarily. It's powers transferred. It's powers transferred by, and I'm going to use the Labour administration because only the Labour administration have run North Lanarkshire Council, save for a few short weeks in July, August 2022. Any powers that have been delegated away from the 77 elected members have been delegated away by the Labour administration.
By El Presidente himself.
And then on an annual basis, officers are asked to bring forward, they're asked to bring forward other areas which too can be delegated powers.
So stop the bus for me, Gerry. You have a Labour leader who is on about £66,000 per year in North Lanarkshire for doing that role, and plus travelling expenses, etc. But £66,000 per year is what he gets.
I thought it was 69 actually.
Is it 69,000? Well, perhaps I'm corrected, but as I said again, you've got that level of salary going to an individual, and he's delegating that authority.
Yeah, I mean, there's practical powers of delegation, right? So every planning application that goes in, I don't want that coming across my desk. There's certain responsibilities that should fall to officers on a day-to-day practical basis to make decisions, rather than having to wait for committees and for councillors to pour over reports like that. But there are anything that has to do.
But as an elected member, right, and this is a serious point, Claire, for you as well. As an elected member, we have a councillors fund, let's say, and it's about $1,500 or whatever it is, and we can basically fund good causes, local groups,
the community grant
etc.
fund,
good causes, that kind of stuff. We don't have the power to increase that. We kind of put that up to about £50,000 per elected member.
If you were like sitting on a board of a democratic structure, you'd be thinking you could put input to the agenda, all this stuff. But we're kind of working on a committee cycle where things were set in motion 6, 7, 8 years ago.
Yeah.
Nobody's ever said to me, Claire, what would you change about the council?
Yeah.
My issue really comes down to powers relating to spending. We're elected as councillors to protect the public pound and to be the council's critical scrutiny body. That's our job. Any point where officers can spend and make spending decisions that impact on our budgets, because any spending that's made impacts on our budgets, the very least that should take place is a meeting between elected members and officers to determine whether or not that's an appropriate spend. Now, no disrespect to any particular officer, but our chief executive officer, in the delegated powers as they are, can make cash awards to community groups and voluntary groups without that even coming back in a committee report. So you won't know necessarily how many times the chief executive has made a donation or made an award of money. That kind of thing.
Why would the main administration no be on this? But that's the bit I don't understand. Why is the SNP no up in arms, Greg, in relation to the lack?
Because they see themselves, delusionally, they see themselves as the administration in waiting.
So they want to take advantage.
They want to take advantage of that. So they see themselves as the administration in waiting.
Wow.
Which is just not going to happen. But there was a recent event that we're all aware of, because it was in the national press, where
I'm going to stop. We've got a caller coming through.
We do, right?
We can put that on pause, Gerry, and we'll take that call.
Okay.
Callers take precedence.
Hello there.
Hi, how's it going?
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm not too bad. I have recently just turned 18, and I'm honestly not sure who to vote for. But I saw a speech from Nigel about scrapping human benefits human rights and benefits and everything like that, and it kind of came to a scare to me. And I was wondering, like, if people are voting for him just don't want their human rights or they're declaring their own benefits. I didn't understand.
So caller, thanks very much first and foremost for calling in. I take it you're talking about the Nigel Farage speech at the Reform Conference, and again we've asked Claire the very same questions. The Greens going to be the ones to stand up to reform, and I'm sure that will lead us back into that subject point. To answer your question, I think it's rather worrying at the fact that we're now talking about ECHR becoming a thing of the past, taking away your rights as a citizen of the country, and actively promoting that at your conference, and then better still was telling everybody who's potentially going to vote for them that we're taking away your benefits as well. Really, in effect, is it a turkey voting for Christmas? Is that what we're seeing?
I think it's just an attack on the working class. It's a full-on attack on the working class.
Oh, I don't want to disagree.
See, as a young person, what were your thoughts on it when you listened to it? What struck you as the most? There was loads of terrifying stuff in it, but what struck you as the most terrifying?
I was just very confused on why just people would vote for him in the first place, because he wants to get rid of these human rights, the benefits that people have to live their life, and it just didn't make sense to me. I didn't know what the hype about it was, or just anything. Were you
not looking forward to the zero tolerance policing, the stop and search without any reasonable cause?
The continuation of 0 hour contracts,
putting an end to the benefits culture.
I think the benefits do help a lot of people, even though some people can't do what they do with them. A lot of people do need their benefits. Plus, with the policing and all that, police need to do their job. If they need to do stop and searches, it could be for lawful reasons. So that isn't for me to decide.
I think again, if we look at it on the scale of things, that conference, I think there was a lot of insight gained for anybody at all who's interested in politics and the direction that the country's potentially going to go. Are we just basically looking at a Timu version of America in the UK? Is that what we're looking for? A presidential style Trump?
I feel like some benefits are more entitlements to some people, and I feel like some people forget that.
Well, as I said again, the concern that I have is turkeys voting for Christmas. That's basically it, because the biggest proponents of reform, etc., are the ones that are shouting about migration and everything else, but lo and behold, little do they know that they're actually going to potentially come after them, and that's quite frightening.
So they're using kind of Trumpist rhetoric as well, that, you know, going to make America great again, and Nigel is going to make Britain great again. He also spoke about the potential, although I think it's wishful thinking, of an early election. If we were to have that early election, could you see yourself persuaded to join the reform group and make Britain great again?
I feel like everything on that side is just a little racist, and I'd rather just not be a part of it. I'd just keep to my own side, and that's why I'm looking for a little bit of help, or a little bit of just a chance to see who I want to vote for, who I want to be a side on, just things like that.
Do you know something that's quite refreshing, because you're a young voter, and I'll tell you something, I'm an extremely old cynic in relation to politics in this country in particular, and it's refreshing to hear that young people are actually looking
still conscientious,
a reasonable position and things.
Yeah,
Paul, has that answered your question? Sorry, on you go.
No, I just wanted to say, like, I don't get very much news off of good places. I get a lot off of TikTok, but I know it's not obviously very accurate, very good, so I just needed a little more information or insight to actually what is happening, so I know how to vote or who to vote for.
You strike me as someone who likes their music. As a young guy, would that be the case? Your tunes.
I suppose so, yeah.
Right. Is there any potential for Dame Andrea Bocelli Jenkins to be number one this week with a beautiful rendition of Insomnia?
I very much doubt it.
Damn.
Anyway, Cllr, thanks very much for that. I hope there was relatable young person things happening there, because I was completely lost. That was over my head. Cllr, thanks very much for your call. Thank you so much. Cheers, buddy. Thank you. No idea where you came from with that one, Gerry.
It was it's radio.
That's bizarre. But anyway, I think that's a prevalent point as well. Gerry and I discussed that last week, Claire, about how people are disseminating their news now and how they're getting their news. You're going on the basis of social media, unchecked, unbalanced, unfettered. And where do you see the Greens campaign in this?
Well, and some of the stuff I see on social media, I'm obviously quite horrified by. And it's, again, Trump's done it. Misinformation, post-truth society. No comebacks. You can lie as much as you want online, and or anywhere else these days, apparently. So
before any changes were made with the budget decision made by every group.
I'm not a puppet. I'm a real boy.
You know, I think it's for us all to really have a considered approach to it. If you see something on TikTok and you think, oh yeah, I'm getting behind that, go and do some research, please. You know,
I seen an interesting video for your new leader. Is it Zach? Is that his name?
Well, that's the Green Party of England and Wales.
But
they're different.
Not the Scottish Greens, but your UK Greens. And really, in effect, I think that the video that I seen, there was a clip of him standing on a beachfront and that kind of thing, and addressing the small boats crisis or issue that consistently is being raised in mainstream media. And one of the interesting points that I thought, and it had me captivated, I was watching this video, And the position for him was, he came right out with normal terminology, I call bull, expletive. Now within that, again, you're not seeing politicians actually come out and challenge this head on, and I thought, you know what, it's actually quite refreshing to see somebody such prominence.
It's the most important thing we can do, Greg, is call out the lies. Call out the lies, because there is truth and there's lies, right? Yeah. And it doesn't matter how many times you repeat a lie, it's still a lie.
I like the guy who came on, Asim Malhotra, the health spokesman. He came on. He works for who does he work for? He works for Robert F. Kennedy, the US Health Secretary, and he came on to suggest that the COVID vaccines were linked to the King and the Princess of Wales's cancers. Wow. And acknowledging that this was pants. The 2 days after it, the conference has had to reverse ferret, and rather than saying he's talking rubbish, all they said was, and it's back to that post-truth thing where you can say what you like, you don't need to take responsibility for anything. The best that they could come up with was, we don't endorse what he said as a speaker, that we paid him to come and speak at our conference, so we don't endorse what he said at our conference, but we believe in free speech. Well, what a load of crap.
Free speech doesn't encapsulate the notion of truth, does it?
Not at all. But again, that's the other probable issue that we're going to face as well, because if you're saying free speech and that's what they're standing on, listen, let's make sure everybody has the right to say whichever crazy stuff that they want to say. Position's going to be is when they go to take away your human rights, and especially your ECHR 10 rights and all of this, then what protections do people have?
So that's again the importance of, you've got free speech, but I've got the right to question what you're saying. Yeah. A bit like we've got a right to question lots of things. So when we're denied the right to question things, that is a terrible, terrible affront.
So within Scotland, Scottish Parliament elections, where do we think the Greens will fare then, Claire? Are you giving a prediction of how many seats that you think you'll get?
I would hope we'd pick up another couple of seats to what we've already got.
I reckon you'll do all right. I reckon you'll do all right.
You think 4?
4?
No, overall.
Surely your optimism stretches beyond that.
No, I said I think we'll retain our MSPs, and I think we'll get a couple more.
Right, give us a number.
What's your campaign strategy so we can steal
it? Shamefully, haven't read it.
If you were being super optimistic coming up, what number would thrill you to pieces? Realistically, thrill you?
What number would give you power? That's the question.
It's 10.
Well, I'm thinking this term nobody's going to get an absolute majority.
I don't think so.
I think I hope it's going to be a vote by vote choice with the parties. You know, like we had however many at the start, because it was a better parliament. And I would hope it'd be the same. So if the Greens could have 15 in there, that would be a decent number to.
Hold power to account. I reckon you're right. I think the position's going to be SNP is going to win a minority, but just based on constituency seats, and then it's a free for all in the list vote. It's a free for all, and I think that smaller parties potentially could have a middle road in this to actually come forward. Again, Alba, what was the latest prediction in relation to Alba?
See, I looked at it in February. They were looking at 6 seats. Right. And then by the time we hit the beginning of summer, they were down to none.
It might be
it's a really volatile.
And then you've got your party coming through.
You've got Jeremy Corbyn's party.
Yeah, we've got to look what current MSPs who might jump party as well.
That's another significant.
Having that incumbent.
I don't even think it's MSPs. I think come the next council elections, again, I keep hearing, Gerry, I don't know about you, constantly that Nathan Wilson will be jumping to reform. So I'm constantly getting this.
Well, I would have bet my life that Graham Simpson wouldn't have, and he did. So I am the wrong person.
That's what I'm saying.
I thought he was an absolute stick-on to go there.
No,
an absolute stick-on, and I thought Tess White would have been next, and I'm not convinced that she would.
That there's actually an SNP councillor that's looking to try and join the Conservatives because in that rebuild programme, because it was formerly their party home, they're looking looking to get back in there.
To return back there.
And return there.
Douglas Fairbairn. Anyway. But I was looking at I didn't know Rees Mogg's daughter has joined Reform. So she's there, and
well, the whole point is he's currently lobbying within the Conservatives at the moment as well about a coalition between the Conservatives and Reform. And he's given it that under no circumstance he's a Tory to the end, and on his tombstone it will stipulate here lies a Conservative member. However, I find it rather bizarre.
So was he not at the Reform
conference
in September?
Yes. No, it was at the weekend.
So what he said was he commented, Louise, that dinner table discussions with his children can be heated.
Oof.
But he has learned some new lingo from them, like the terms Riz, whatever that is, and no, you're the waste man.
Wow.
I mean, I would argue that Jacob Rees-Mogg is not a Conservative.
No, absolutely not. He's far right craziness. That's what he is. But it's interesting if you look at how people are finding these individuals relatable, really in effect, and somebody in Hull who is in a council estate. What relevance does Jacob Rees-Mogg have in you in Hull? Where do you see that connection being? Because institutional family wealth coming down the line as opposed to people who are struggling to make ends meet.
I don't know why I don't know. Everybody was all
what we should no, we'll keep that to ourselves. Actually, we won't share. I was going to share some historical information about.
Oh right.
I think I had a great auntie in Hull.
But as I said, look, listen, Hull, Halifax, doesn't really matter where. I think the disconnect that exists, and again it comes back to what that caller's point was, if these political parties are actively stipulating that they're going to slash benefits. No alternative in this, by the way. No to say we're going to create these jobs. There's going to be a national living wage that's going to exceed.
I mean, it's scapegoating people. You know, it's scapegoating people on benefits, scapegoating migrants. It's just like
a class war.
It's just
I see it as a class
everybody
war.
but us don't look while we tax dodge billions.
Well, again, there's an interesting point in that, Claire, because again we attack these minorities every single couple of months in relation to small boats or immigrants or benefit claimants or the jobless or whatever it may be, and the only ones that we're not attacking, this biggest minority that there is billionaires.
No, Greg, you're wrong, and I'll tell you why you're wrong, because they're all leaving. All these millionaires and billionaires are all leaving the country.
Yeah, bye.
Because big bad brother government wants to tax them the appropriate amount of tax to pay for the services that they enjoy.
I just find it bizarre that again, if you look at it, GMB or GMB News,
or GB News.
GB News, sorry, GB News.
GBP.
It was discovered the other day there who the actual owner of that is.
He's
a billionaire who's playing both sides in relation to Black Lives Matters, and then obviously presiding over the position of the small boats and that kind of stuff. You go to another local based radio station in Scotland and you've got two billionaires on that, and they're highlighting the fact that people need to be carrying a bit heavier on their shoulders, and they need to be doing this and that, and the way of doing this is working, we're way out at again, sitting with wealth that is completely eye-watering to a certain degree, but as I said again, what we're not seeing is anybody coming forward with points about taxation on these individuals. And do you think the Greens?
Well, I think one of our social media posts today just says tax the super rich.
Oof.
And it's a position we've held for a long time.
What about taxing the corporations?
Well, they're already taxed, but they're dodging it as well, aren't they? That's the thing. There's some people run companies that help corporations avoid tax. Some high-profile politicians, in fact. So, it's close the loopholes, stop the Scottish government funding these companies through Scottish Enterprise, because that is scary. The point of Scottish Enterprise is to bring money into Scotland, and we're actively funding companies who then take it out to the Cayman Islands. Crazy behaviour.
Are you suggesting for a minute but the legislators who write the policies and laws to ensure that taxation is paid appropriately are actually double jobbing, creating loopholes, leaving government, creating up consultancies, and then working with business to ensure that they can identify those loopholes for the
I'm saying tax evasion is a $1 billion industry, and people don't want you to look at it. People don't want you to look
but
at
there
it.
has to be a fairer taxation system. People are feeling it. You're going to a supermarket now and half your wages practically spent on your messages, and then the other half of your wages being spent on your rent or else your utilities. There is no money left. Where did they think that this is all coming from? And if we look at what Labour's sort of leaked budget position is going to be in the next couple of weeks as well, when the budget's announced, then we're looking at another increase in national insurance contributions. So from an employer's perspective, how much more small business can carry on their shoulders? But we're dodging, we're running round in circles all the time about that one minority class that continuously gets away with no paying their fair share.
Do you know one of the things that I've noticed over the last week, and more especially since the reshuffle is bringing back in all the old Labour hacks from 10-15 years ago when they were absolutely in the doldrums.
Is that a good strategy?
It's absolutely brilliant if you're not going to vote Labour, but it's like when were we at our absolute worst 10-12 years ago, right, let's get back to that, and we'll get Douglas Alexander and we'll get all of these sort of old Labour, all these Blairites and bring them back in. I think potentially what happened to what's her name, Rayner, I think that in the long term is going to have a really damaging impact on the Labour Party, because it's forced that reshuffle and it's taken away
the trade unions.
It's taken, well, potentially, but it's taken away one of the northern voices that existed in that group, and it's back to the London-based Blairites.
There are now 6 candidates, or the last time I checked the news, there are 6 candidates. They're all women. Some are from the north, some are from the south.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see who makes the cut.
Yeah.
Or gets onto the ballot when they they close the doors on Thursday.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd be surprised if it's I think they accept and acknowledge that it has to be a female for balance. They would like to have a northerner on it, but I think there's some really powerful London voices in there who will impact on that. So,
well, I think the favourite is Bridget Phillipson. But my money would have been on Emily Thornburg.
Yeah, I thought so.
Because I think she's a really good communicator.
Yeah, she is. She's good on TV, doesn't fluster.
But the fact she comes from London means she won't get it.
Watch your space.
Listen, I think that politics, especially in the country, is absolutely bizarre at the moment, and all roads lead back to Farage. There isn't much that doesn't lead back to Farage. If you take the European Union vote and Brexit, etc.
It's Nigel's fault.
And we're not actively discussing that as a nation to say, look, listen, we came out of the European Union. He's trying to obviously blame Theresa May, but the reality of the situation is it's an absolute omni-shamble.
No one wants to acknowledge any of that, because to do so would mean that they would have to take responsibility for the statements that they made at the time, the promises that they made and haven't delivered, whether that's through Brexit or other other means.
That's the thing, though, isn't it? It is that lack of accountability. You can promise whatever you like now, and even that has happened with Brexit. Save the NHS. Nobody's going, but you lied last time.
I know.
You
so
absolutely lied last time.
When they finish down there, they can always come back up and join North Lanarkshire Council.
Well, I'm sure,
because they don't like being accountable either.
I'm sure Frank's missing North Lanarkshire Council, because again he was always one to make sure that the El Presidente's wishes were executed to a T. I just, again, I'm going to come back to it and end on this note. I just find it bizarre as a nation that we're seeking out minority groups, but the one minority group that needs to be sought out is the one that none of us are talking about. Just out of curiosity, do you know how much a billionaire makes in interest per day? How much a billionaire? 10 grand, a billionaire. A billionaire.
Well, I'm thinking.
Let's just call it a basic £1 billion you've got in the bank. Much you reckon?
So what's the interest rate?
So 5%.
grand.
Let's say 5%.
Like 50 grand.
50 grand, 174 to 250,000 with a potential of going up to £1 million per day. That's what the average billionaire is making per day.
What do you do with it?
Oh, well, what happens when you bought all the golf clubs in the world? How many boats can you own? Do you know what I mean? It's rather bizarre.
That's why I'm asking you.
Well, what
do you do with it? You're the only billionaire that I know.
Again, this is the question. The question is where does it go? It's rather bizarre that the fact that this is earned on the back of the workforce. It's earned on the backs of those hard-working people out there, and yet nobody gets to see it.
It's going to one of those tax havens that we wouldn't have if we hadn't pushed through Brexit to allow them to continue.
Well, at least we know their great grandchildren can all have addiction issues in the future. So on that note,
On that happy note,
yes, you have been listening to What's the Point. A very big thank you to Louise for spending some additional time with us. Big thank you to Claire as always for coming on.
Thank you, Louise.
And my old pal Gerry Brennan.
Thank you, Greg.
This has been What's the Point, Gerry. Have a lovely evening.
You too.
Take care.